Hi, Russ here, and welcome back to the shop. Well, I really like this project. This is my circle cutting jig that I built for my bandsaw. That's one of the many ways you can cut circles out of wood on your bandsaw if you have a circle cutting jig. And you can do it on the bandsaw, you can do them on a router table, on a table saw. There's lots of ways to do circles, but the quickest way, it seems to me, is on the bandsaw. But it depends on what you're trying to do. So this jig makes it easy peasy to do any size circle. No big deal. And there's no moving parts. Sounds weird, doesn't it? OTB thinking. So it's my OTB circle cutting jig. So the way it works, let me show you the grid pattern. So if we move over here to column A, starting right here, this is 2.5 inches from my blade to here. So when my table's in this position, this would give me 2.5 inches, would give me a 5-inch circle, cutting it out on a bandsaw. If I needed a 10-inch, this is where I would have to place my pin for spinning the piece of wood. So I didn't drill the holes, but I did center punch every hole, and every one of these is a 1-inch increment. So this is 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches of the diameter. Right here, if you go to column B, so if I move my table in a little bit, this now is actually a 1/4 inch, it's 1/8 of an inch further away from the blade than that point right there. That means that it's going to be a 1/4 inch bigger diameter on the circle. So this will give you a 1/4 inch bigger diameter. So if that's a 4 inch, this is a 4 1/4 inch diameter is what you'll end up with. This column C gives you a 1/2 inch. So 4 1/2, 5 1/2. So I would use this hole to get a 5 1/2 inch diameter circle. So, and each of these is a 1/4 inch increment. So what you do is to line it up to A, I have the ones here. So A is here. So if I wanted to use the A column, if my diameter was 6 inches, then I would use the A column because 6 inches is an even inch. So A is the even inch column. So I would put it there. Then when I push it to the stop, it lines up to A. If I needed it to be 6 1/2, that would be C is for a 1/2. So I would drop it into C, and now it lines up to C column when I use it. So then all I have to do is find the 6 and come over here. This is the one I would use. And so I would drill that out. If this hole is not already drilled, that's okay. I did center punch all of these when I set this up, and we'll go over how I set this up in a minute. But rather than drilling all these holes, I'll only drill them as I need them. So if I need this now is when I would drill it. And next time I use it, I still know that's the same size. That's going to still be 6 1/2 inches, always. So if it's pre-drilled, I'll just use it. If I need to drill it out, I'll grab my drill and drill bit and drill a 1/4 inch hole, and always drill them at a 1/4 inch. If I have a weird number, let's say I've got to do a 13 1/8 inch circle. That's a 6 9/16 radius. I did that pretty fast, didn't I? Maybe I already knew the question. Anyway, so now I would go to E, okay? And that brings me to this line. Then I take my center punch and my ruler, and I know my radius is 6 9/16. So I just line this up. I'm going to pull that out for a second so I can bring the E to the back of the blade. Then I take my ruler, line it up to 6 9/16. And what that tells me now is, if I center punch right here, I now have 6 9/16 radius is what that'll cut. And the nice thing about doing this is that I can do any size I want then using these columns and just fill them up as I need to. And I can add columns if I need to. If these two get used up too much, I can always add columns on it. So this should last a long time. You drill these out only as you need to, And you use these generically as on that job if you have something strange that you can't line up to the 1/4 inch on the circle. So you can still have it for that. The other beauty of this sort of thing is that if I want to, I now have this mark right here, and I can give this a label. So we would call it E, since it's an E column, and it's somewhere around 12. So I'm just going to call this E12. And I mark that E12 over here on the side. I can make a note to myself, E12, and it's 6 9/16 R, and it was used on the coffee table project. And now I can take, and I have a little note. When I see that, I can go over here and see what that was for. So if I have to go back and use that again, I actually still have it on there anyway, so it makes it nice. So, and I can write these notes up into here without any problem on my sheet. If it ends up I don't need it, I'll just grab my sander and erase it. But this is a nice little feature so that I know what that hole is even a year from now. And I find that I still need it because I'm going back to do something. This is going to be very cool, I think. So that is what this table does for you. So to use the E and use the E12, I would just drop in E. There we go. Drill the 1/4 inch hole here, and we go on. So let's cut one circle just for fun, okay? So I had the drill. And I have a piece here, and I've already got the size up on it. And we're going to cut this thing at somewhere right around 6 inches, just to make it simple. But it could be any size in the 1/4 inch increment. So right at 6, I want to drill that hole out right there. So let me pull this out of the way, and let's drill that hole out. It's no big deal. It doesn't have to be all exact or anything. So I'm just going to come out here. Let's go to number 6. And there we are. So now I have a 1/4 inch hole, and I know it hit that because there was a starter hole there for it. So it was able to stay on line. Now that I have that, we can cut. So we want to put this into the A-stop, and we want to put a small peg into here, bring this back, and drop this, whoop, into the hole, like so. Now, let's turn everything on and let's take a cut. Now, we come to the stop and cut this out. And just like that, you got a nice little circle. And the circle is exactly 6 inches. So, easy peasy, and this works really great. That hole stays there. If I ever use 6 again, I just don't have to drill it. If I have to use another one, I'll drill it that time. So, anyway, this is easy to make. Let me show you real quick how we make this. The easiest way to make it is when I go to do the A, I come in here and I actually put a ruler, a steel ruler, right in here. Let's set this out just a little bit. Let me grab the ruler. So I just put a ruler in right here, And I have this ruler set up so it starts right at 1. And then since I'm going to start at 4 inches, I would punch at 2 inch. So I just take my center punch, and all along this line, every ½ inch, I punched with a center punch. And then I marked them with a little Sharpie just to highlight them, make them easier to see. But they all have a little indentation right along the line now. Then I take and I put a 1/4 inch. Well, for the first one, I use a 1/8 inch spacer now. And I put this up against it. And now I punch it out at 2, 2.5 again, every ½ inch on the 1.5 inch. I don't have to do any math because I spaced it 1/8 of an inch here, which gives me a 1/4 inch radius increase. So then we punch it at every inch and ½ inch, and then we come in here and we go from this to the 1/4 inch spacer, and I put that in here, butt that up, and go from 2, 2.5. I do the same thing. So I do that with the correct spacer for all 3 of these, incrementing at 1/8 of an inch at a time. So these are all 1/8 of an inch further back than the one to the right. So, and then I just do a line through them, so that kind of helps my eye find it. I see 5, and I know that's the half column, so I know immediately 5, 5.5. So it makes it easy to find where you want your pivot point for whatever circle you're drilling. So the grid pattern works out real well when you do that. And by using this ruler method with the spacer, you can get pretty darn accurate on your hits. And since you're only hitting, in my case, I used the ½ inch increment, so I never really had a chance to mess up. It made it pretty easy to keep hitting the right numbers, and my pattern came out very well, actually, by doing this way. So it worked out. I got a real nice, neat pattern out of it. It seems to be very accurate. So I measured several times with it in place and checked to see different numbers, and everything seems to work. So that's how I made it. Other than that, it's just a 20 inch by 20 inch piece of plywood with another piece here that's the size of the miter slot to give me as a guide. And that's the whole thing. It's just plywood. So it's easy to make. You could try to make one if you have questions on it. Leave them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions how to make it better, hey, I'd love to hear it. I know they're out there, those ideas, so don't be afraid to share them. Anyway, if you like this video, or if you learned something from it, hit that like button. I appreciate it. But most importantly, please come back again, because we're nowhere near done. The OTB circle cutting jig. Thanks. We'll see you again soon.